Hey everyone, welcome back. We are turning the rewind dial back to 1983. So let's place ourselves, shall we, in the early 80s. Some of the things that happened in 83. The U.S. invaded Grenada.
Sure.
Remember that?
No, I don't. No. Not one bit.
I just remember Hello Mara, Hello Fara, and that's still the whole song about welcome from Camp Grenada. You don't remember that song?
Okay, that has nothing to do with the country that we invaded, Matt.
Okay, so we can cut this out. That's the only thing I know about Grenada.
I could talk about grenadine.
Okay, calm down, y'all. Here's what else had happened. Oh, I do remember this, because I was 12 years old in 1983. Pope John Paul II finally signed the new Roman Catholic Code incorporating changes brought about by the Second Vatican Council. And Vatican II happened before I was born, but it took the Catholic Church this long to make it official, although the Church had been living by Vatican II for a really long, long time. One of the things that happened in Vatican II is that the Catholic Church finally decided that people could decide for themselves how many kids to have. Rather than leaving it up to as many blessings as Jesus would like to bestow upon your family.
I have a weird fascination as a Jew. I have a weird fascination with the Vatican councils. When they have to choose a new pope with the smoke. Any sort of that kind of pomp and circumstance. Not that kind of smoke. Maybe, I don't know. I don't judge anyone. Any kind of pomp and circumstance around the world, I like. Whatever that is.
Well, I just find it funny when Catholic people are all mad at drag queens for wearing big flashy clothes and grooming children. I'm like, hello, Catholics.
Maybe take a little introspective view.
Exactly. Take a look at those crazy robes that you all wear, and maybe, I don't know, the thousands of kids who have been sexually assaulted by Catholic priests. Bring it on.
Yeah.
At me. I don't care. I will fight this fight. I'm an ex-Catholic. I can do this. Also in 83, once again, the team from Washington with the unfortunate name that we don't say anymore, that is now the Commanders, won the Super Bowl against the Miami Dolphins.
I don't really remember that game, but I am excited that in 2 episodes in a row, I can talk about the win. And this team is almost sold. It's going to happen. I can't wait. And I am coming home, and I will be walking down Pennsylvania Avenue in jubilation.
Okay.
That's the pointy ball, right? That's the...
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Once again, I prove myself as the most coached person on this podcast.
That is true. That has never been in dispute. Matt and I have been watching Ted Lasso, so football just confuses us as a word right now.
That's football.
Football.
The video game Mario Brothers was first released as a Nintendo arcade game in Japan in 1983.
That's kind of badass. Can you imagine playing Super Mario Brothers as an arcade game? I don't know. I think that's kind of cool.
I don't even think this was Super Mario Brothers. I think it was just Mario Brothers. It's the first time we ever saw Luigi. Of course, Donkey Kong had been out for a while, so Mario was already kind of in the video game universe. But I played the shit out of Donkey Kong when I was 10. That and Pac-Man.
Of course.
And Ms. Pac-Man.
Ms. Pac-Man with the bow. Hashtag patriarchy.
And that was about it. Okay.
Yeah.
Top of the Pops. The number one song of 1983 was a song that unfortunately still gets played at weddings, even though it's about a stalker. It's a great song, but it's just not appropriate for your wedding. Every Breath You Take by The Police was the number one song.
That is literally the stalker anthem. Please listen to the words, everyone out there. Also, you should listen to this album because it's really fucking good. Synchronicity.
Yes. The entire album is great, and the song is amazing. Biggest movie at the box office is one we are not discussing. It is Return of the Jedi, otherwise known as Star Wars Episode 6.
Daddy Issues conclusion.
Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star Wars movie, and I will not hear anything about that.
That is the only correct answer. So, yes, you got that one correct.
Yeah. Woohoo! And I still, to this day, have a huge crush on Billy D. Williams. I'm sure I've talked about it on this podcast before, but him as Lando Calrissian, even as a young pup, I was like, okie dokie.
So I am going to put my nerd card, Calrissian.
Okay.
Calrissian, yes.
Okay, you know what? We're even for the football comment. We've now shown our areas of expertise today.
Yes, please listen to our episode about Lady Sings the Blues for more on our hotness correspondent's feelings about Billy D. They're all there.
They're all there. They're all there, printed black and white.
And the Best Picture Oscar for 1983, this was actually my submission for 83. I was overruled. I was going to have us watch Terms of Endearment, which is, let's just say, very, very different from the movie that we're about to discuss.
Just a smidge. Just a little bit. I do love Terms of Endearment, though.
So I've heard of this movie. I actually don't know what it's about or who's in it.
Okay.
It's about Terms of Endearment.
It's about Terms of Endearment, Matt.
So it's a legal film? I don't know.
It is about a mother-daughter relationship that is, shall we say, complex.
You should watch it.
But also, you know, while Shirley MacLaine is having trouble relating to her daughter, played by Deborah Winger, both of them up for Oscars, Shirley MacLaine won. She also starts a romance with one Jack Nicholson, who got a Best Supporting Actor Oscar for this movie, and it won Best Picture. So, swept the Oscars. It's a dramedy. I mean, it's kind of, not everyone knows this movie, but Matt, you'll understand that it's kind of August Osage County in its very dramatic, lots of funny stuff. Lots and lots and lots of funny stuff. So, yeah, good movie. Good movie.
I'll throw it in the mix.
It's a good, like, rainy Saturday movie.
Yes. Yes. Where this next movie we're about to talk about is not Terms of Endearment.
It's a snowy Saturday
Well,
movie.
there you go.
Welcome to the Rewind Project, where Allie, Matt, and Eric take another look at your favorite milestone movies through the lens of our present day. Will it be a skip, rent, or buy? Stay tuned and find out.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back once again to the Rewind Project. I'm Allie.
I'm Eric.
I'm Matt.
And today we are talking about Scarface, 1983, 40 years ago. This was my first time, and let me tell you, it was a real journey. This movie was a real journey from start to finish. Like, high camp, low camp of some variety, I think. Like, from soup to nuts, from literally the start of the movie.
There was no scenery left. It had all been chewed off by the end.
Al Pacino is so full after this movie, he never ate again because he ate every goddamn piece of scenery. And then had dessert.
Well, the scenery, he didn't put up his nose.
Well, true, yes. That was his dessert. The cocaina was his dessert. So, yes, Scarface, wow. Written by one Mr. Oliver Stone, who I'm sure you've never heard of before, and directed by one Brian De Palma, who I'm sure you've never heard of before. So, you know, real reach. But, you know, baby Oliver Stone.
Yes, he was very young.
Right?
Before he was,
Yeah.
I believe, before he was a film director himself.
I think so.
He was a writer. And Brian De Palma, I got to tell you, I mean, I was like, didn't he do mostly kind of like cheesy, you know, over the top 80s movies? And I looked up his filmography, and he has done both really high camp and then some actually really, you know, well regarded films. And it was just kind of like
Carrie?
Well, yeah, I mean, Carrie. Look, I love Carrie. We
talked all about it on this podcast.
I do adore that movie. But yeah, that's kind of in the campy variety. But he had a couple that were also like, oh, he did, like Carlito's Way. I was like, I didn't know that was Brian De Palma.
The Untouchables, which I've actually never seen, but I hear is a great movie.
It's a great movie.
Yeah. And The Black Dahlia, which I love that movie.
The first Mission Impossible. But then he's also done like Raising Cain and Snake Eyes. So.
Right.
There you go.
Oh, Bonfire of the Vanities, the movie. It took me 3 tries to get through that book. Whew, that was a brick.
Yeah, and I've never seen the film.
That's another
Tom Hanks and Bruce Willis and Matt's favorite, Melanie Griffith.
Meg Rat.
I'm sure she's a lovely person.
I mean, I don't know. She seems kind of weird. But this is no longer a Melanie Griffith podcast, unfortunately. So moving right along to the notable achievements. No Oscar noms.
Huh.
Take that for what you will.
Wow.
But 3 nominations for Golden Globe, 0 wins. 1 Best Actor for a drama, Al Pacino. Best Supporting Actor, Stephen Bauer, and Best Original Score, which I really like the score. It got me like straight up into the early 90s. It was all synth, and like it was like a mall soundtrack, and so I felt very nostalgic about it. But I know that I think it was a little divisive among us.
Kind of wanted a slice of pizza and some orange and an orange Julius. Is that?
Yes, just walking around the mall, folks.
I mean, Giorgio Moroder, he's the guy who's behind the music for Flashdance, and I love that soundtrack. But it works for Flashdance. I don't know. I guess I'm just used to kind of the wafting accordions that were used in The Godfather. So when I kind of see something in this mobster genre, the total like synth score just made me go. There was a montage that I just like, oh,
yes,
come on.
So good.
There was this crazy montage that had like that Giorgio Moroder thing going on, and I was like, oh no. I couldn't. I couldn't.
It was like going to Lerner. I'm telling you, it's like going to the mall.
I honestly could not tell you any of the music that was played inside this movie.
See, that's so funny because I'm usually the one that doesn't notice a score, but this one like jumps out and grabs you by the lapel and shakes you around, this score.
The
it's
giant
basically
lapel?
like, bitch, you're going to Miami in 1981.
You were going to get on that dance floor and you were going to shake your booty, is what that's.
You were going to wear a white jacket and you were going to like it.
With an aqua t-shirt like Don Johnson.
You were going to get that members-only jacket and you were going to love it.
I had 3 members-only jackets growing up. I did.
I think we all did. I had a gray one.
I had a gray and a burgundy one for the winter. It was padded.
Oh, excuse me!
Right?
I didn't know they had padded members only jackets. I would maybe buy a members only jacket. Like I feel like it's come back around to being like iconic again. I don't know.
It would be an ironic choice, but I would be all about it.
Yeah, I'm sure that they have them on eBay.
I wonder if you can find one. God, I'm going to go look now.
I know now. Now I'm like itching to go. Right after this podcast, certainly not during. Okay, the plot of Scarface, for whatever it was, in 1980 Miami, a determined Cuban immigrant, just let that sink in for a second, takes over a drug cartel and succumbs to greed.
Succumbs? I don't know. I think he was pretty greedy from the jump. He was poor, but he was greedy, like from the very beginning.
Yeah, like
Tony Montana was not a nice man.
No, I was going to say he didn't. It's not like one of those things like where he started out all sweet and nice and then he became a hardened criminal. No, like he was an asshole from the jump.
Yes.
And I mean, this is unfortunately, I think this is going to be a theme for me with this movie. I walked in, I'm like, okay, it's about organized crime, and I just compared it to The Godfather the whole time, which I understand is a really unfairly high bar. But Al Pacino also stars in The Godfather, and in that one, he does play somebody who is kind of a nice person who's trying his best, who gets sucked in to the world of organized crime, mostly due to his family and family loyalties. And by the end, people are kissing his ring, and he's like all the way in. And it's kind of a fall from grace, but it's a story that goes somewhere. Tony Montana was a dick from the jump in this movie. From the very first scene, he was just a raging asshole.
And see, I'm really into the Narcos franchise, which is about Pablo Escobar. So I went into this, probably unfairly, thinking that it was going to be more like that. From a drug cartel, I thought less mob, more drugs.
Okay.
I guess it was probably about equal. But so I was a little disappointed because I was like, oh, well, it's not really like that either. So poor Scarface. Can't stand on its own 2 feet. Any more comments about Mr. Al Pacino as Mr. Tony Montana?
Just
the linchpin.
Al Pacino is definitely not Cuban. Just going to throw that into the mix.
No, shut up. Yes, I do know that.
No, I just say that I agree with you guys because like he was at 11 the entire time and like from the asshole meter. And it is interesting that it's hard not to compare this movie to The Godfather because it is kind of a similar storyline, but there's so much more of a story arc where he starts out as a nice guy who actually ends up being an asshole because he doesn't follow his father's method of being a godfather. Where in this one, he's just a dickhead from the beginning, and it's amazing that he has any friends to begin with. Poor the person that we'll talk about next, Manny, man. I mean, like, I don't understand why they were friends from the get-go.
Unless it was some sort of loyalty because they came over from Cuba together and, that's like a trauma experience and, like, it bonded them. I don't know. I mean, I'm getting real deep into the, I only play a psychiatrist on TV. But, like,
I kind of thought Manny figured once you're in the inner circle, the only more dangerous place to be is a former member of the inner circle. I mean, to me, it was a survival thing. That was just, that's the only explanation I could come up with, because you certainly can't trust Tony Montana to do you a solid and not throw you under the bus if it's good for him to do so, because he's an asshole.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. Like, either you're his friend or you're waiting for him to shiv you. So I don't.
I wouldn't want to be his ex-friend.
No.
No. You would be dead probably.
Well, yes.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that it's not even just like he's an asshole. He's like an asshole with like anger management issues, entitlement issues. It's like, what else on top of being an asshole? Like, I'm sure he's written up in the DSM. You know what I mean? Like, he is at the top of all of those categories.
Yes.
Which is just and then you put in a drug that makes you go off the rails, and then you have Al Pacino's performance. Those were the building blocks.
I love the scene where he's got the little box, and it's just a mirror inside with already pre-cut lines.
I was so impressed by that. I was like, I don't do drugs, but like, if I did, I would absolutely have an assistant to like make my own lines for me. Prepare the key bumps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't serve me fresh orange juice in the morning. Just make sure my cocaine lines are set ready to go.
I need you to measure out those lines.
I'm so wimpy, though. If I was ever going to get addicted to drugs, it would have to be in pill form, because I would not be about shooting up, and I would certainly not be about snorting anything up my nose.
No.
That just sounds painful.
I can barely do Flonase, y'all. I can definitely not do cocaine.
Yeah. And that scene in Pulp Fiction where Uma Thurman snorts something she doesn't realize she's snorting. It's like pure grade heroin, and then that bloody nose and the whole. I was so traumatized by that.
I still skip over that part if I'm rewatching Pulp Fiction, because I know it's.
And then a syringe through the heart, like to top it all off. I mean, that was some powerful filmmaking, I got to say.
I know it really sucks, man. I'm never going to go on Ozempic because I don't know if I could shoot myself up. It's a real shame.
Yeah.
It's a real problem. All right, let's talk a little bit about Stephen Bauer as Manny Ray, the sidekick, the long, sad sidekick.
Okay, I didn't know, Allie, until you told me that Stephen Bauer actually is Latino.
The only one in the entire
that was a nice surprise.
That
at least we do have one Latino actor playing all of these. Frank Lopez and Omar and Manny Ray and Tony Montana, one Latino actor. Because I thought we really had zero. There was that one guy who got killed in the shower in the very first scene, who's an actor I really like. But yeah, I thought, Al Pacino, Stephen Bauer, come on, how Anglo can you get? But that's just another line about, what it's like to be a person of color in Hollywood, because that's not the name he was born with.
No, the name he was born with was Esteban Ernesto Echevarria Sampson.
There you go.
Cuban-born American actor.
At least there was one.
And really hot. It's
really hot.
It's interesting how, like, subtle I feel like he tried to play the Latin aspect, if I'm saying that correctly, compared to Al Pacino, who I felt like really made it really thick. Like, to the point where it felt uncomfortable. Like, I wonder how accurate this actually is, like the one you're talking.
I don't know that Al Pacino's accent was ever bad or off or wrong, but you're right. It was just so thick. It was sometimes all you could pay attention to. Especially
everybody else surrounding him was just kind of like, a slight accent there just to kind of give you a feel, and then just like let it go. You know what I mean?
I don't think Al Pacino understood subtlety at this point in his career.
Did he ever, though, really?
I think he finally got his Oscar for Scent of a Woman, because as over the top as that performance is at times, it also has levels. This did not. He was at 11, accent-wise, energy-wise, everything-wise, from the very beginning of the movie. And I think you're right. I think Stephen Bauer kind of said, I probably felt a little bit more secure in his Cubanness, because he actually is Cuban, and didn't feel the need to do any more than he would do normally, but also just knew that if he tried to match Al Pacino in terms of any kind of energy thing, the movie would just be pure camp. And so to keep it on some level of realism when they had scenes together, he was also Tony was the hothead, and Manny Ray was always the one going, dude, you're going to get us in trouble. Like, you're going to make enemies. Like, you need to calm down. That was also his character.
True. Yeah, he was the nice guy. Definitely he was the nice guy.
I mean, nice. He was still like a, in a drug cartel. And he killed people. He killed a few people, but nicely.
But I mean, killing for him was the last option, not the first option.
True.
So.
Good point.
You know what? Who would you rather be murdered by? Does it matter? You're still dead.
Am I having sex with the person before? Then definitely Stephen Bauer.
Well, yes.
I mean, even if it was the last face I was going to see, I think I would probably pick Stephen Bauer.
True.
I mean, fair.
All right, next up, our female protagonist, Michelle Pfeiffer, a young Michelle Pfeiffer, Elvira. I
think it was both, actually, in the movie. At different times, she was called different things, but I think Elvira was the more common usage. Gorgeous. I mean, Michelle Pfeiffer.
Stunning.
Couldn't take your eyes off of her. I thought criminally underused, but you do have to remember that she was a complete unknown when this movie was made. So no one was thinking Michelle Pfeiffer star. And yet, even so, when she kind of disappeared towards the end of the movie, I really missed her.
The character had no backstory, no nothing. She was just kind of there as arm candy and something to be bartered, essentially, between, the main guy and Tony Montoya, in a way.
She had a backstory. I mean? She was from Baltimore.
Not
there you go. That's her arc.
I mean, her family
really
wasn't
like
even
crabs and the Orioles and kidneys. There you go. There's your story.
I used to dance on the Corny Collins show.
That is a hair don't.
No, you're right. I mean, they didn't give her much, but again, I thought she was underused in that they should have given her more, and they should have given her more scenes.
Yeah.
She could have been a fascinating character. I mean, who is this person who, shows up and allows herself to be arm candy for hardened criminals and be, traded back and forth between them?
Bought and sold. Ugh.
But isn't afraid to speak her mind. I mean, she was not, with both of them, she told it like it was for her point of view. I mean, but she still went along with them. It was I don't know. I would have liked a little bit more character development. I think today we probably would have gotten more character development for her.
Possibly.
All right, moving right along to the other female in this movie, the great Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio as Gina, Tony Montana's sister, baby sister. I love her. She hasn't done much for a while. No,
I haven't really. I mean, she was a great Maid Marian in that awful Robin Hood movie. Kevin Costner.
So bad.
But she was good.
Alan Rickman was the only good thing about that movie.
Yes. Well, she was good. She was good in it.
She was pretty good.
That was her?
Have you seen that movie?
Oh, yes, I have seen that movie. I did not put two and two together. I'm so sorry.
Oh.
Yes. Loved her in that movie.
Yeah, she was great. And she's good in this one. Again, a lot of kind of very over the top, the end. Her end in particular is a little extreme.
Yike. Was not expecting that.
Little
whole
Game of
scenario
Thrones energy all of a sudden.
I was like, in the last 15 minutes of the movie, I was like, first of all, I was like, when does this movie end? And second of all, wow. Okay, sure.
Well, I mean, she did a complete 180, like off screen. Like we first meet her, she's the girl next door kind of person. And the next time we meet her, she's about to have sex in the men's room with a guy at the Light Club. Completely, I mean, on cocaine, just like a completely different person from the first person.
Don't do drugs, kids. Don't do drugs.
Seriously.
That's what this whole message was. This movie was about. It was a don't do drugs.
And I know that, we're supposed to, look down on how protective, Tony was and how chauvinistic it all is. But I got to tell you, I was a little bit Team Tony when he was rescuing her from having coitus in the men's room, of all places, with some dude that that was not cool.
Yeah, up to the point where he smacked her. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Team Tony. Yeah, you don't need to have anybody don't need to have sex in the men's room. That's not what the men's room is for.
Yes.
It's a good PSA.
The more you know.
The more you know. Do it in the ladies' bathroom. It's cleaner.
That's not true. I've seen the inside of some ladies' bathrooms. That is not true.
I've definitely gone to the bathroom in some sketchy places. There are some places I had to pee in when I was at Mardi Gras that will never just burn into my brain.
Just hover.
It was even worse than that. Anyway, it's not. We're gonna talk to a different type of audience. Keep talking about peeing. Moving on to my favorite character, Robert Loggia as Frank Lopez. Okay, LOL as Frank Lopez. But I did enjoy the Star of David pendant that he wore with all the other chains. The chain budget on this movie was out of control.
Yes.
I mean, these men's were wearing 5, 6, 7, 8 chains. It was crazy.
And that's such an 80s thing to have all those chains in your hairy chest. But like, how many hairs do you rip out every night when you take your chains off?
My dad used to wear a chain, like a smaller one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's how I remember growing in the 80s and probably in the 90s.
Every time I see a gold chain nestled in a bunch of chest hair, I just think, ow, ow, ow.
I don't have chest hair, but I can imagine in other types of hair. And yes, I've gotten it caught in the back of a necklace in the back of my head.
Yes.
And that's pretty painful. So,
Yep.
but yeah, big chain budget. That's a good band name, Chain Budget. You heard it here first if you take it.
Yeah, Robert Loggia is just so dependable in everything he does. It was kind of nice for him to play something a little bit over the top himself. Although Frank Lopez was like, it's kind of like, I'm going to sound like, the Matt's thing about Manny Ray now. It's like he was so much more level-headed than Tony. He was almost like, I was about to say he was the nice drug lord, but like there's no such thing.
Honestly, like I wish they hadn't made him Latin. Like I wish that they had just made him like a Jew. You know what I mean? Or like just a wasp or something. There was no need to make him.
I have a confession to make. When I started this movie, I was 100% convinced that this is a true story and Tony Montana was a person who lived and existed in Miami and snorted a lot of coke.
I mean, I'm sure that those people did exist.
I'm sure that it's based on like a composite of a bunch of stories because certainly there are drug cartels in Florida. But I legit thought that this was like a biopic. I did.
That's amazing. I think that's amazing.
I can see why you would have thought that, actually, because I kind of thought it at the beginning of the movie, too. So I'm just going to reveal myself
Honestly,
here.
I mean, I think part of the thing is like, why else would you make this movie?
Yeah. Was this based on a book or something? Or is it?
No, it's just Oliver Stone wrote a screenplay about a guy named Tony Montana who did a shit ton of coke and had a little friend that you can say hello to.
Say hello to my little friend.
That scene was just so over the top. Like, this movie was made for 13-year-old boys. Even though they probably couldn't see. That's really what this movie is.
Maybe like 17-year-old boys. Yeah, there's a lot of testosterone in this movie. More than I had expected.
Look at the reviews from 1983. I think this movie has a very high score on Rotten Tomatoes, if memory serves. I was shocked.
It's very beloved for whatever reason.
I mean, if you like coke and blood, I mean, go for it. I mean, listen, a lot of people like violence. It jazzes them up, and I'm not averse to violence in movies. It has to serve a purpose at some point. And this I got it. And then I got it again and again and again and again and again. And I didn't need it after a while. It was a lot.
We get it. He's an asshole.
Yeah.
And then he becomes a bigger asshole, and then he becomes a coke-fueled asshole. So, like, I guess those are the levels. I don't know. Anyway, back to Narcos. If you guys like this sort of thing, I do love a drug movie. I do love a drug TV series. I don't know why, but I've seen a lot of drug-oriented movies, and they're fascinating to me. Maybe because I don't do cocaine. All right, last but not least, a really weird piece of casting. And when I saw him on the screen, I just was like, okay, F. Murray Abraham has Omar.
A couple of years away from his Oscar, I think. Because Amadeus was kind of mid-'80s, and that's what he won his Oscar for.
I've never seen Amadeus.
Oh, Amadeus is a fantastic movie. Oh,
did he hold up?
Oh, yes. Yes.
I guess he was already old, right?
F. Murray Abraham has not held up. He is recently canceled.
I was going to say, isn't he canceled now?
Oh, yeah, totally.
He was really good in Homeland. That's how I know him. Got in
trouble on the set of The White Lotus and then was fired from his latest thing for inappropriateness with the young women on set because he's an old lech. But a good actor. And yeah, this was crazy.
Yeah, it just was like, really? Again.
Although his death scene did make me stand up and pay attention. I have to admit, I'll give it to Brian De Palma and Oliver Stone. Like, I was like, what? They're not going to, what? Are they really? Oh my God. I mean, that was me on the couch watching him meet his untimely end.
I did not expect that. I expected him to die, and but I definitely didn't expect a hanging from a helicopter. That was actually kind of pretty cool.
Yeah, inventive.
Yeah, as deaths go. All right, and then last but not least, a little honorable mention to one of my faves, Richard Belzer, as the comic in the Babylon Club.
So was Richard Belzer actually a comedian?
Yes.
Yeah, he was a stand-up before he did.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I was convinced when he was doing his stand-up and he was telling all those jokes about Hispanic people, and then it cuts to those two Hispanic guys with guns. I was like, they're going to kill the comic. It didn't even occur to me that they were there to kill Al Pacino, which they did, and they weren't even listening to the comic, but they had such stone faces, and I was like, ooh, those two don't think this is a funny set.
I thought they were going to take out the entire audience, because they were all laughing at it. I totally was thinking the same thing.
And what the fuck was up with that person that was running all over the casino dancing with everybody? And
it was a clown. It was not Chuckles the clown. It was
that was disturbing.
Are we talking about the one in the giant paper mache head?
I didn't like that at all.
Octavio the clown.
Okay.
That was super creepy.
He had the big head, the big ears.
For no reason. Let's just put a creepy-ass clown in the middle of everything else right before we get a bloodbath in a nightclub because, De Palma.
You know why the internet is amazing? Because I can Google Scarface clown and it comes right up. I mean, hashtag Google is amazing. That's just, I love it. Okay, so I see, as in the beginning of this movie. So in the beginning of this movie, they talked a little bit about something that was real, was that Castro at a certain point let a bunch of Cubans come over to America, and then because he was a dictator asshole, also emptied a lot of the prisons at the same time so that the prisoners would come over. It was a real thing that happened. And so that's where the story starts to take place. And you have Tony Montana, who's apparently one of these prisoners that comes over. But I see, and then they're like in a shanty town, and it's sort of like, I see that immigration policy and immigrant protection hasn't come very far in the last 40 years. Like the people coming through the border as we speak are living in the same sort of bullshit conditions. It's just like the vicious cycle.
Under a fucking overpass. I just like... That's how we
95. And that's a shitty part. I've been there. It's a shitty part of 95. It's like a 7-lane highway.
And yet, one of the reasons why I think immigration policy has not moved is because of fucking movies like this.
Right.
Right? I mean, if you want to have a poster as to why immigration is bad, just sit everyone down and make them watch Scarface.
I'm just going to get political. If we actually fixed immigration, then certain political parties would have less to bitch about and stir up their own base.
Oh, please. I'm going to get more direct than that.
Really
Everything that the Republicans complain about is an absolute distraction. Every single thing. Drag queens, trans people, books that they want to ban, critical race theory, which doesn't even exist. I mean, it's all just a bunch of bullshit to like make money and stay in power. So there, I said it. At me. I don't care.
I'll go a step further. I listened to the Ron DeSantis Twitter Spaces announcement, and guess what? He's really fucking scary. He's much scarier than Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah.
Because he has a little education. And I was listening to this thing because sometimes I like to hear what the enemy has to say. You got to keep abreast of the situation. And it chilled me to the bone. It chilled me to the bone what he had to say.
Yeah, I mean, we are in a scary state. But I mean, all of these culture wars, I am convinced that Ron DeSantis does not give a shit about the woke mob or anything else he talks about. It's all a ruse to fool people who don't know any better, to vote their way because it's completely against their economic and every other interest they have. It's all bullshit. But I mean, movies like this are one of the reasons why people don't want any immigrants to cross the border, which of course for a white person who is descended from people who literally committed genocide against Native Americans so that we could lay claim to this place, to be anti-immigration is real rich.
Right. Or somebody like me who, is a descendant of immigrants.
Yeah.
Who came over from...
Well, we all are. If you're white and you live in North America, you are descended from immigrants.
Right.
Yes.
just different levels. Well, and to that end, Eric, a lot of Cuban Americans were frustrated with this movie and the portrayal of Cubans, and especially the exaggeration of how many criminals were actually on those boats.
I mean, I can see why. I saw what they were doing with the mom, where the mom was saying, you know, you make us all look bad, people like you. You know, and I was like, okay, the movie did say, hey, there's a lot of people like Mrs. Montana out there who are not criminals, who are trying their best to just take part in the American dream. But, you know, she was on screen for what, 10 minutes out of a 3-hour movie where most of the time we just saw Al Pacino go crazy, snort coke, and kill people. So, yay, immigrants. We're all a nation of immigrants. Yay. I mean, kind of, it rings a little hollow.
You know, which is an interesting point because since Tony Montana wasn't a real person, we didn't have to talk about how he got to the United States anyways. He could have just been here. He was here like second generation that grew up in the ranks. It was Brian De Palma decided to make sure that we knew that he was an immigrant released from the jails inside Cuba.
He was a bad seed that Castro sent over here, and this is the price for accepting a bunch of an embargo of Cuban immigrants. America, this is the price you pay. Totally fictional story. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a poor choice on his part.
Thanks, Oliver Stone. You're awesome.
Not like Oliver Stone has ever been awash in controversy before. So I have a real affinity to Miami. My aunt has lived there for 40 plus years, probably around the time this movie started. And, I do feel a little bad because it is so close to Central and South America, and Cuba, obviously, in the islands that, they just happen to be the drug capital of the United States, maybe of the United States, maybe of North America. Who knows? Maybe of the top part of North America.
I think it is the world.
I think we Googled this, and I think we did find out that, yes, it is. It is there are more drugs in and out of Miami than any other port in the globe. But yeah, you're right.
In the world? Wow.
I think so. I think it is mostly geography is the reason for that. I don't think there's anything, really about the city of Miami. It's funny. I will say I haven't watched it since the 80s. But I watched the fuck out of some Miami Vice. Oh, yes, I did.
I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen a single episode of Miami Vice. However, I do think that I would probably like it.
I mean, if you like a drug situation on screen.
I do like a drug situation.
I mean, but it was more about just how good they looked and the clothes and and the soundtrack was killer. And I think I had a little closeted crush on Don Johnson in those white jackets and aqua t-shirts.
Who among us?
I mean, me and Melanie Griffith. There you go.
Right. It was also really interesting to look to see Miami Beach before it got kind of like that 90s Art Deco makeover. Mm-hmm. And, it's not the party hotspot. It's not, LGBTQ plus, really center of Florida. It was just looked really fucking run down and, kind of shitty. That was like, as somebody who's been to Miami Beach a bunch of times, that was interesting to see.
I wonder if that's why we got that one scene on the beach, where they're talking to each other, drinking out of their.
Oh, where Manny gives Tony the lesson on how to pick up chicks. That one.
That went so wrong so quickly. The one moment where I actually liked Tony, where he's like, "Kid, watch this. This is going to be hilarious." Is that how we pick up women? Is that
no? It's not. Know? It's not. Maybe you introduce it several dates in, but it is not how you pick up a woman. And if somebody did that to me, I would punch them in the face.
I mean, I know it's important that you need to know how to do that, but Correct. I don't know that you display how to do that on the one.
Yeah, I think make it a happy surprise is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Make her kind of wonder: is this going to go to? Oh my! That's the way to do it.
Exactly.
Not that I have a lot of
your R's every now and then.
Don't throw all your cards on the table. You need a little bit of mystery, right? Yeah. Keep your tongue in your mouth. On the first date is what I'm saying.
People who have not seen this movie have no idea what we're talking about right now, but trust and believe it's the one scene that is, that was fun.
If you know, you know, is what I'm saying.
Okay. Yep.
And funnily enough, this movie was actually mostly shot in LA because Miami didn't want the bad press. Shocker.
Which that makes a lot of sense too, because Tony's house had way too much property for Coral Gables, which is where I'm assuming it would have been.
Probably, yes.
Yeah, that was like, because everything in South Florida is pretty much shoulder to shoulder. There is not a whole lot of property.
No, and they're all one level because it's Florida and you can't.
I mean, you might have two.
Maybe, but like it's rare.
Was that true in the 70s, though? Do we know that, or has it just been completely overpopulated now?
Well, I mean, when you're at sea level, obviously you can't dig a basement.
Well,
so.
I know, but I mean, the crowded part of it.
Oh, I think it's been pretty crowded for a while. I mean, now it's at a saturation point. I actually just saw a news story about like the growth of Florida.
Well, especially because Florida's going to shrink as the oceans rise.
Right. But climate change is a myth, Eric, so we'll see.
Well, that's what Ron DeSantis says. We'll see who's right.
When
Florida.
Disney has beachfront property and they're laughing their asses.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, exactly. I have a bridge to sell you in Florida.
They'll need it. They will need it.
Yeah, exactly. Just get the fuck out. Do y'all remember the DARE program?
Oh, yes.
In the 80s? Yes.
I remember the T-shirts.
I mean, iconic T-shirts. Like, let me buy when I go and buy my members only jacket, I'm also going to be buying a DARE T-shirt. But I remember, we used to have assemblies. People would come in, cops would come in. So it was like the 1980s, obviously, and the war on drugs, Nancy Reagan, all that bullshit was a real time for like talking about illegal drugs, and of course, all the stereotypes that come along with illegal drugs. This is what I found when I was doing a little research. DARE sought to educate children on how to resist peer pressure to take drugs. Okay. It also condemned alcohol, tobacco, graffiti, and tattoos as the result of peer pressure. I'm 3 out of 4 on that, so I guess I'm a bad person.
I mean, do you if chalk counts as graffiti? I mean, I've written on a bathroom stall, so I guess that's graffiti, right?
I mean, me too. So I guess that's
there you
true.
go. 4 out of 4.
All right.
Done.
Wow, I'm a real shitty person. Keep your kids away from me is what I'm saying.
And yet, I've never done hard drugs. So there goes your slippery slope argument, you assholes.
I know.
I mean, look, getting kids not to do hard drugs, fine. I can get behind that as a mission. But slippery slope arguments are usually so stupid.
It's so dumb. And they made it feel, especially as a kid going through this program, how important we were, and like how it was up to us to really, combat this peer pressure, people doing drugs. It basically turns kids into snitches, and snitches get stitches. So it empowered kids to be fucking snitches.
That's true.
Which is,
Truer words have never been spoken.
I tell you what, though, Allie, I want to go. I have these ideas, but I'll never follow them through. If someone wants to take this from me and make some money, go ahead. I would totally buy a T-shirt that looked like a DARE T-shirt, but when you look closely, it says DARE in big red letters, and then the white fine print says DARE to do a lot of drugs.
Oh.
That would sell.
I like that.
It could.
To do a shit ton of drugs is what I would put on that T-shirt.
Yeah. Dare yourself. It's also interesting.
I don't remember what it stood for.
Do all.
I don't know. We don't know. I think D stood for drugs, but I don't know what.
Do all rapid ecstasy? I don't know.
Okay, sure. Fine.
You don't want ecstasy to be rapid. You want it to last.
Drop a rap everywhere? I don't know.
Drug abuse resistance education.
Okay.
I liked Allie's better, but that's all right.
Thanks. I mean, it's real government-y. I also find it interesting, especially in the current climate of like the decriminalization of marijuana and how it really is too little too late for those, in the 80s and 90s who were arrested for relatively minor crimes related to like, marijuana, even possessing marijuana. There are people in jail for several years.
People used to make the slippery slope argument about marijuana too, and I kind of could buy into that one a little bit, only because marijuana was illegal, like for anybody. And when I was growing up, you couldn't even have like medical marijuana was not a thing. Like pot was just illegal. And as soon as you are willing to break the law to get high, then maybe you'll try other things that are against it. But that's why I always say that's why you legalize pot.
Well,
because
I smoked a lot of pot in college, and I never did any hard drugs.
Yeah, I mean, I think the slippery slope is probably full of shit there. I'm just saying it made sense to me as a young person.
Oh, sure.
Because I was that's against the law.
That's the argument. That's what you're going to start.
And I was raised on military bases, so me with a joint in my hand as a young child never, let me say again, never would have happened. Did I sneak cigarettes behind the bleachers in high school? Oh, yes, I did.
Sure. Sorry, Mom.
I mean, I was raised the same way, and I thought the same way until I, like, as an adult, met people that actually did marijuana and other things, and I was like, oh wow, these are actually productive people that are part of society. I had no idea, and this is total bullshit when I was raised.
Yeah, but I mean, that's why I say just legalize pot, because it's not going to, it doesn't cause that many problems, and there aren't that many people who are truly addicted. It's possible. People say it's not possible. That's not true, but it's very rare that someone is truly addicted to pot.
But people get addicted to alcohol all the time.
Sure.
So, like, don't tell me that it's not okay for marijuana,
well, and
but it's okay for alcohol.
Make alcohol illegal. That didn't go so well because that's just part of our culture. I mean, we drink. We're just, and so again, so much of this has to do with history. It's like what's been legal in the past. Aren't there a bunch of psychedelics that used to be legal too?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them until the 70s and 80s. When Nixon got rid of LSD, and actually it was the 80s, so it would have been Reagan. He got rid of MDMA.
Fuck them both. That's all I have to say.
I mean, always and forever. On that note, y'all ready for some fun facts?
Always.
Sure.
These are pretty good. I had to really stop myself because I would have had 15 fun facts on here, so I had to really trim myself. First up, and probably the most important, is that Oliver Stone wrote this screenplay while battling his own cocaine addiction.
It's why the drug seller scene seems so real. It's
Tinge
personal
of
knowledge
reality.
He had to do research, people. It's called research. He's an artist.
I mean, that's so crazy to I guess I didn't even realize that he had a cocaine addiction, but I guess everybody kind of probably did.
If you work in Hollywood, you've at least been around
in the early 80s. Oh, sure.
Yeah. Though there had been a myth that Pacino snorted real cocaine on camera. That would be funny.
I would believe that myth, given the movie that resulted.
The cocaine used in the film was supposedly powdered milk. Even if De Palma has never officially stated what the crew used as a drug stand-in, but for whatever it was, it created problems for Pacino's nasal passages. For years after I've had things up in there, Pacino said in 2015, I don't know what happened to my nose, but it's changed.
Okay, Matt and I are both protecting our noses with our hands right now, for those of you who are just listening at home. Oh, my God.
So I know that there are debates about in-holes and out-holes. Okay, the nose is mostly an out-hole. Air is the only thing that is supposed to go inside the nose. Let's just put that here. So I don't care if it's cocaine or powdered milk. It is going to fuck you up by snorting stuff into your sinuses. Just a no.
And as somebody with shitty sinuses, I can't even imagine.
Powdered milk, though, that just sounds like the worst choice.
Yeah, it's like paste. The minute it hits anything that might be like watery inside your nose, no, that's wrong.
I mean, as soon as it turns to mucus, you got a, fucking Dairy Queen shoved up your nasal, but no.
They should have just given him the cocaine.
Yes.
It would have been better.
Just get high.
The international corporation set up by Saddam Hussein to launder money from his various enterprises was called Montana Management, after the Scarface main character.
Okay. Are you proud, Oliver? You should be.
I mean...
I
have no words.
According to the Family Media Guide, which sounds real conservative, which monitors profanity, sexual content, and violence in movies, sure is, Scarface features 207 uses of the F word, which works out to be 1.21 F-bombs per minute. At the time of the film's release, this was the most of any movie in history.
Only one per minute? That... I would have assumed that, there was one every 20 seconds.
Yeah.
I'm assuming most of them are uttered by Tony Montana.
And everybody else. I mean...
Yeah, there were a lot of liberal fucks all over the place in this movie.
Keep in mind, this film came out before Ted Lasso was released. Fuck is every other word in Ted Lasso. There are so many F-bombs that are dropped in that show.
Kent, yeah.
Everybody.
Okay, this is my favorite thing. So do y'all want to hear about who auditioned and who were considered for the role?
Always.
Love this. Okay, so this is for Elvira. So Glenn Close was the original choice for the role of Elvira.
I can't see it.
So noodle on that for a second.
I can't see it either, but you know what? Glenn Close was awfully young in 1983.
This is about when Garp came out, right? That was her first film. She was a young woman, and she can do anything. But I think you need the look that I hate to even use these words. Like, I'm just going to slap myself as soon as we're done recording for even saying this. You need someone more conventionally attractive.
It have to be arm candy, right?
Glenn Close can play beautiful women and is a beautiful woman, but she's also got an interesting, very memorable face. And Michelle Pfeiffer looked a little bit more like conventional arm candy. I hate myself for saying that. Just like somebody slapped me across the face because it's just an asshole thing to say. But it's just, trying to think like a Hollywood suit. That's what they were saying.
I agree with you, though. Like, I'm looking at photos right now of a young Glenn Close, okay? Some of them are actually, like, extremely attractive.
She's stunning. She's a lovely woman.
But stunning in a Cate Blanchett kind of way. Cate Blanchett is a gorgeous woman, but she has a very distinctive look. It's not the girl next door look.
Yeah, Kate and Meryl and Glenn Close can play beautiful women, and they can play women who are not beautiful. And a lot of it comes through with makeup, and a lot of it comes through with their acting choices. But it would be real hard to make Michelle Pfeiffer look homely.
Yes.
It just would.
It's true. Okay, here are the actresses that auditioned but didn't get it. Courtney Cox.
Yes.
This is like Dancing in the Dark, Courtney Cox.
Okay.
Gina Davis.
Sure.
Carrie Fisher.
Carrie Fisher would not have been able to stop herself from making things funny that didn't need to be funny.
Yeah.
But other than that, she's lovely. And listen, Carrie Fisher knew how to put things up her nose in 1983.
Cameron Manheim.
Really?
That's an interesting choice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I only know Cameron Manheim from the late 80s, early 90s, so I don't know what that would have... Okay.
Yeah. Kelly McGillis.
Sure. Sexy.
Lorraine Newman.
That seems funny to me. I mean, I just know her from SNL, so that just... I picture her as being kind of silly, but maybe she could have done it. Who knows? Sharon
Stone.
Absolutely, yes.
And CeeLo Ward.
Sexy as hell. Absolutely.
The actors who turned down the role included Rosanna Arquette, Kim Basinger.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jodie Foster. Your girl, Melanie Griffith.
Okay,
yes.
So you say that. I actually think she would have been good in this role. Because it's not a leading role, it's a supporting role. And she would have seemed more sympathetic, actually, than I think Michelle Pfeiffer's character came across.
The baby doll voice would have really suited this, too.
Yeah.
Because when she said bitchy things, it wouldn't have been as bitchy. She would have been fine. She would have been
less of an ice queen, for sure.
Yes.
Sylvia Crystal.
Okay.
Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Too intense.
Kathleen Turner.
Sure.
Deborah Winger.
Okay.
I like Kathleen Turner, but I think she would have turned it up a notch. I think, Michelle Pfeiffer is the medium between Kathleen Turner and Melanie Griffith.
Probably so. All right. Other women that were considered: Isabella Adjani.
Gorgeous.
Karen Allen.
Okay.
Sandra Bernhard.
No.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Huh.
Also a no. I mean, not for Elvira. No.
Dana Delaney. Jessica Lange.
Absolutely yes.
Kay Lenz.
I'm not sure I know who Kay Lenz is off the bat.
I don't know who that is. Annie Potts. I don't know.
That could have been fun. It would
I
have changed the movie completely.
It would have totally changed the movie.
I don't know. I mean, Annie Potts was not famous then, so we wouldn't have expected her to do a bunch of comedics. I mean, it might have changed the trajectory of her whole career.
Maybe.
True.
Maybe. And Sigourney Weaver were also considered.
Okay.
I think she could have done it. I don't think it would have been a good role for her, honestly.
And last but not least, especially in wake of her recent documentary, Brooke Shields was also offered the role, but her mother forced her to turn it down in favor of Sahara.
I watched that Brooke Shields documentary. Have you seen it?
No, but I hear it's like bananas.
It's crazy. And I mean, it's amazing what Hollywood was getting away with when Brooke Shields was legit a minor.
Yeah.
And casting
teenager.
her in extremely sexual situations in not one, but 3 different films, one of which she was 12 years old. Her first kiss was on camera as a 12-year-old kissing a man in his 30s, I believe.
I mean, I've seen Island of the Blue Lagoon. Like, that's just, it's crazy what, like...
Gross.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's... But, you know, Brooke Shields' persona in 1983 would have fit... I mean, as soon as you saw her coming down that elevator, you would have known exactly who Elvira was. Because Brooke Shields herself was an exploited teenager. And art would have mirrored life in ways... Although, you know what? Scarface would have asked Brooke Shields to do less inappropriate things than 3 of the movies that she made when she was a teenager. So she should have done this one because no one's ever heard of Sahara.
No, I've never heard of the movie. I'm assuming it's about the desert. Who knows?
One assumes.
All right, you guys ready for a game? Game time.
Yes. Sure.
Okay, this game is called War on Drugs. You are... My favorite part is naming the game is my favorite part of doing it out loud. You're taking an illegal drug from the 1980s and you are crafting something around it. What's the storyline? And then actors, directors, medium if you want. So, Matt, we're going to start with you.
Okay. So I have recently watched How to Change Your Mind on Netflix. And I am totally down for legalizing LSD, psilocybin, MDMA, and whatever else, because psychedelics are not addictive. And it's insane that we don't get to use these, or at least use them in a therapeutic setting, which is what they were really intended for when we discovered what they could do.
Is this like was what microdosing is? Is that kind of?
No, microdosing is different.
Okay.
Those drugs were actually, when we figured out what we could do with them, and before they got out into the populace and people started taking them recreationally, you know, they were being used by actual psychologists to help people deal with traumatic experiences, because you could actually talk about the experience and kind of decouple yourself from it and think about it without it being traumatic. It's amazing. So in 1985, MDMA was actually put on as it was labeled a tier 1 narcotic. Before then, it was actually legal and it was being used as a party drug. You could actually call a number and like buy it by phone.
Shut up.
I mean, I didn't know this either, but it was really interesting. So my story takes place in 1985. As somebody who used to be selling it, quote unquote, legally, is now not able to do that and becomes an actual drug dealer. And so I want to see what the story is with this person and how that occurs. My drug dealer in question is going to be Taron Egerton, because I can't get enough of him. I mean, he's a great actor and he's adorable.
Who among us?
And then his girlfriend.
Don't put him in a mustache though, because he won't do the movie.
Oh, really?
After Tetris, he was like, no more. He can't grow a mustache like that. And he was like, no more acting with fake mustaches. I hated it. So
doesn't need a mustache.
Is that why he dropped out of Gladiator 2?
I have no idea. They wouldn't have made him wear a mustache for Gladiator 2, I don't think.
I don't know. Seriously. But I was sad that he dropped out because that would have been hotness.
Yeah, the more Taron Egerton, the better. His girlfriend in question is going to be Zoe Saldana, because I love her too on screen, no matter what she does. So it's just going to be the two of them in this story, and it's going to be directed by Danny Boyle, because who else knows about drugs better than Danny Boyle and making movies about them?
Why not?
Okay.
I love it. All right, Eric, what do you got?
Okay, we're taking a hard right turn on this one. I actually took some inspiration from your outline, Allie. And when you said dare, do you remember the Dare moms? Those crazy ladies who were like all about, you know, I mean, they were the kind of the Tipper Gores of their day, you know, and you know, saving the children. So I have created a movie starring Melissa McCarthy as one of those Dare moms, who is determined to keep her children safe from, you know, all these awful, awful drugs.
And I have cast Tom Holland to play her child, because I think Tom Holland needs to play a stoner. I think he'd have a great time, and I think it'd be really funny. And I think I would totally buy Melissa McCarthy and Tom Holland as mother and son on screen.
I think that'd be hilarious.
I would totally do that. So the plot of this movie is that it's Thanksgiving, and Tom Holland is coming home from college, and he wants to get high in his room, and he knows he's coming home to his dear mother's house. So he decides to play a little joke on mom, and he agrees to make some mushroom risotto for Thanksgiving dinner, which was one of mom's favorites. Although he laces it with lots of magic mushrooms, and the entire family goes on a psychedelic trip during dinner. So it's 24 hours, and all the crazy shit that Melissa McCarthy gets into when she finally releases herself from her Dare t-shirt shackles and learns to enjoy her goddamn life. So I would have this movie directed by Ben Falcone, her husband, because no one makes a Melissa McCarthy movie better than Ben Falcone does. And I think it's going to be a holiday smash. It's going to bring families together, and I think everyone should see it.
It's going to bring families together. Take your tryptophan and go to the movies. And
I would watch the hell out of that movie.
Okay, so I also have something very different, too. So I decided that it was time to bring the Dude, Where's Your Car folks back and make a movie called Dude, Where's My Joint? So Sean William Scott. So Sean William Scott and Ashton Kutcher now run it's present day. They run a marijuana farm in California. It's legal. They're making money hand over fist, but there is an evil person who is going to be played by Will Ferrell, of course, because he plays the most ridiculous evil people. I cannot wait to see him in the Barbie movie. Ever in canon in what's the model movie with
Zoolander?
Thank you. Yes, canon in that. So he is a corporation that wants to take over this marijuana farm. So it's like a lot of hijinks. We'll bring Jennifer Garner back as the love interest. Everybody's kind of aged up. It'll be hilariously amazing, and it's going to be directed by the Daniels because we need a little, everything everywhere sort of weird, trippy magic as part of this movie. So, Dude, Where's My Joint? Dude, Where's My Joint?
I love how all of our movies are so incredibly pro-drug. Do drugs, kids, is the message that you get from the Rewind Project.
I mean, if it will chill people out, legalize them all. I don't
seriously. I can't handle. It's like everybody's up on level 15 all the time. I need you to shut the fuck up. Is what I need you to do.
Tony Montoya's right here. The right wing is like.
I mean, it's out of control. It's out of control. As I like to say, you're at about a 10. I need you about to shut the fuck up. Thank you. Literally everyone. Okay, so it is time for our favorite section, Skip, Rent, or Buy. If you are just tuning into this podcast, well, you picked an episode. Skip means I wish I'd never seen it. Ban drugs forever. Rent means I am glad that I saw it. Don't need to see it again. I like to smoke a little pot. And buy means I will certainly watch this again, probably with my own mountain of Coke. So reverse order. Eric, I just snorted. Eric, where are you on this movie?
One of my resolutions for season 5 was to be a little bit bolder in my choices because I was just like rent. I really loved having this conversation with the two of you, but I have to say that's probably the only reason I'm really happy I spent 3 hours with this movie. I'm shocked that it scored as high as it did on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm sure that if it were released today, the score would not be nearly as high. I just don't know that our appetite for 3 hours of gratuitous violence is there. Now I know I get the jokes when someone says, say hello to my little friend. Was it worth it? Was it worth 3 hours of my life? I don't know. I think I'm a skip for this one.
Okay. Matt.
So this is actually the second time I have seen this movie. I watched it with a college roommate a long time ago. Probably felt differently about it then, just because, younger guy, a lot of testosterone. It seemed fun while you're watching it. Watching it today, it was actually boring and annoying. I don't. Like, Tony Montana, there's just no character development. I didn't realize that as a younger guy. He's just an asshole all the way through. There's some interesting things that happen, but really, there's better movies out there that are about this kind of topic. So go and watch those instead. This is not a good movie. Just skip it.
Okay, and I have to say that I'm a Rent. I enjoyed the campiness of it. It was just like over the top from the jump. It was, it was definitely a little long in the tooth. But yeah, I'm glad I saw this movie. I will never, ever, ever watch it again. But I definitely am glad that I saw it, and I thought it was hilarious, and I just couldn't believe how like crazy over the top it was. So that was kind of a delight for me. It was a surprise. I don't know why I thought it was going to be more serious. LOL to me. So in 2 weeks, we are going to be watching The Wiz. So come on, ease on down the road with us. I'm excited it's been a minute since I've seen that movie. So probably not since I was, in middle school maybe. So I'm excited to revisit The Wiz.
My expectations for The Wiz are hovering around my ankles. So at the very least, I can be pleasantly surprised. We shall see.
I mean, it's really a stellar cast. So very talented. So, we'll take it from there. We'll take it from there.
We'll see. Catch us in 2 weeks and you'll find out how my very low expectations made out.
Yeah, we'll see how much they rose as you watch this movie. I will say it's not 3 hours, so at least it's got that going for it.
Oh, thank God.
Okay, this has been The Rewind Project. I'm Allie.
I'm Eric.
I'm Matt.
Be kind. Rewind.
You've been listening to The Rewind Project. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Radio Public, and Google Play. Please subscribe and rate us. It helps a lot. We love your comments and questions. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and via our new phone number at 202-618-2402. Thanks for listening. Be kind. Rewind.
Say hello to my little friend.